All right, everybody, welcome to the Contracting Conversations webinar. I'm really excited to share with today and to have our guests on, Erick Vargas, CEO, Followup CRM. Go ahead and show that shirt. That's the brand. Boom.
Right there. There
Looking
we
good.
go.
And Erick has been a friend and a colleague for a while now. I want to say few years he's been in the industry with me, but really cool story of how all this has evolved. As many of you know, I was running Followup CRM, and some of the issues that we were running into with our users was using the system effectively. So I was like, man, I need to do some coaching. And so I started coaching a lot, but what happened was, growing the technology, making it better was something that we weren't spending as much time on as we'd like. So what happened, we ended up meeting Erick. And so Erick, why don't you tell from your perspective kind of how things got going, and who you are and what you're doing and a little bit about you and kind of a little bit of the story, and then we will be jumping in a few.
Yeah, so I come from enterprise technology, working at Citrix for most of my career. Before, me and Ryan, just personal friends, knowing each other through church community, met up a couple of times and learned about what he was doing, and decided to leave the cushy job to join a startup. And it was great. We had a good time while we were together, and we noticed that, really Followup was doing kind of two things, coaching and consulting and software. So, after many conversations, we thought, it would be really good to split up into two companies and partner together to really help us focus in both of our areas of expertise. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for Erick, I wouldn't even be doing this full time, because I wouldn't have likely had the support to feel like I can say to the best roofing guys, hey, you're in good hands. And I think it wouldn't have actually come true for me to come out and be a coach full time if Erick wasn't, a great leader, a great tech guy, somebody who really cares, somebody who's loyal, somebody who's focused and cares about the industry and has the right character to run the company. So what was really cool is it all just worked out really smoothly. And so I'm able to do a lot more of what's on my heart through coaching and create better results because of Erick. But at the same time, still referring the product because I know it's a great product. It solves the problem, and Erick knows it. He gets it. And so I'm really excited to hear how Erick has continued to make the technology better, what he's finding from his perspective in technology, and some of the points he's going to make to present to us today. But first, before he does that, I do want to share with you that I have a free scouting report that I'm going to give away today. So what this is a scouting report that is really an evaluation and a summary showing all of your sales tools. So if you can kind of see here, I have all these different tool sets, like in sports. Somebody scouts a player, they look at certain attributes. And so what we want to do is create one for your sales competencies, the way you think, your motivation, and all the areas that you need to work on to really help you stay focused to improve your efficiency and your effectiveness in the profession of. And so if you hang out to the end, I will be giving this away to a lucky viewer, attendee. And this is a $500 retail value. This is incredibly helpful. This will transform or be the beginning stages of a transformation. This is what I do with every one of my clients. I use this process. I'm giving you this step for free. For $500 retail, it will be free if you hang out to the end. It really helps if you ask good questions, and we already have some kind of a connection. So looking forward to that. So I'm going to stop sharing now so that Erick can grab hold of this thing, and look forward to hearing what you have to say, Erick. So what do you want to talk about today, and what are some of the slides you want to go ahead and bring up, and so our viewers can learn how they can grow?
All right. So can you see my slides?
Yeah.
All right. So we can hop right in. Today I'm going to talk about how top contractors maximize their bid margins. And I'm going to leave it in this mode because I'm going to draw something out to make our talk a little bit more interactive. But I want to share how we came up with this talk. And Followup CRM, what we do is we help contractors manage their leads, their bids, and their clients, making sure that nothing falls through the cracks. So because of that, we have the data of thousands of salespeople and estimators. And what we did is we looked at that data. We looked at their gross margins, their closing ratios, their backlogs, their processes, activities, and behaviors associated with their bidding, and then their growth rate. And we put that together into this talk, the bid margin maximizer is what we're calling it. And there are 3 things that you can do at your companies to really help boost that margin. So if you guys stick around to the end, I will also give you something for free, which would be the templates, the tools that you can kind of go home and do this on your own at your company. So before we kind of get to the data, I want to talk about the problem and why we have low margin bids. Ryan, what do you think, from your perspective, what you see contributes to contractors just having low margins?
There's a few variables I think that cause a contractor to, consistently have low margins. Well, first off, I think it's the mindset of the contractor. If a contractor believes that price is what's necessary and what's required and why you win, and you're too dependent on price to get work, that's only in between the ears. That's gonna so whatever an owner believes is gonna be transposed and imposed rather onto the team members, and they're gonna believe the same way. So I think it's gonna be first off a mindset, which has to do with what's a lot of money to you and what are your goals. And I find that folks they don't do a good enough job. So first off, there's that. And then the second part is most of the jobs that you get that have high margins are earned on the front end on a couple of ways. First is the environment you're in. A lot of folks, if they're reacting to an ITB, an RFP, whatever, it's already really too late. The plans and specs are already developed. Somebody's already put it together, and it is all about price to a degree because they're just doing it. But if you're out there in front with owners, out there in front with your partners and designing it early and your fingerprint is all over it, you have the ability to dictate what that's going to look like, the cost. And so that's going to be just reacting to what the market's asking you to do is what helps create low margin. And then the owner being dependent on that. So if we flip that and do more work on the front end, which is why a sales organization, a sales culture is so valuable, because the relationships are being consultative early on, and you're controlling the plans and specs. You're being the consultant. You're the expert, rather than letting somebody say, hey, bid this for us, and you're just basically warm bodies and parts, which is not who the high ones that create high margins. That's not their perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And kind of from our side of things, what we've noticed is a couple things. It could be that maybe you're wearing too many hats. And if you're wearing a sales hat, an estimator's hat, and a project management hat, then kind of like what Ryan said, you're going to win a job. Then you have to fulfill the job. And when you're actually doing the project management side, guess what you're not doing? You're not selling. And when you're not selling and you're managing the project, and that job is finished, then you have to hurry up and try to sell a job, and you wind up cutting margins just to get some work, right? Kind of what Ryan was talking about.
Yeah, you got to keep your crews busy that are trained or sort of trained, or you're hoping that could actually fulfill the work. So that is it. It's like a vicious cycle for sure. So that's a good point, Eric.
And when you do that, things start falling through the cracks, and because there's just no way that you can do everything necessary to estimate well, to build relationships well, and to manage the project. That's a choking point for a lot of companies. And what happens is you forget to follow up, right? And nothing's on the radar. And what you're doing is putting out fires all day when it comes to the job site, when it comes to clients, and you're just running around trying to move things along. But what we're finding is if you take a more proactive approach on your sales and estimating side of the business, and really start to not wear multiple hats and get the support that you need, you can start do the activities that will start to boost your margin. Some people, are throwing things against the wall, just seeing whatever sticks, right? Kind of like spaghetti on the wall, right? And you'll say, a shotgun approach. And you'll say, if I bid 100 jobs, I know something will come in, right? And you're not targeted in who you're reaching out to. And, what we're finding is that those who have a really target client profile that they're bidding to are able to charge more, a premium, and boost their margins because they're specialized in that particular area. So, a lot of people are wasting time bidding jobs that they'll never get. And they don't know that because they have this desperate need, just like what Ryan said, to give their crews work. So they're just, bidding and begging. And, Ryan kind of mentioned that it makes you go on the revenue roller coaster. So, Ryan, from your side, what do you think the hardest part about winning those high margin jobs are?
That's a good question. And by the way, if anybody has questions, they should type in the chat. We should be able to see those come in. So what's the hardest part about winning high margin jobs? I think that from a sales and estimating professional's perspective, it's going to be hard differently for everybody else. Like everyone's going to be different for what's hard. And so if somebody, for example, thinks $1 million job is a huge job, they're going to have a hard time, making their margin that's high margin on that job because they think that's a lot of money. So they're going to discount. So I think that's going to be a lot of their mindset. I think also it's going to be, making sure that people have face-to-face meetings. I don't know very many contractors who get high margin work where they're the expert and there's not really a whole lot of other bidders in the game versus 10, where they don't meet with them face-to-face. So I think it's going to be hard if you think you're going to do all this via email. You're going to make more money by spending that time to go face-to-face rather than just throwing more bids that are low later. So face-to-face, and I think that is huge when you're talking about getting to the actual decision maker, versus somebody who can't actually make the decision. And then I think the hardest part is the skill to be consultative in the sales approach and ask a lot of really good questions. That's the soft skill that takes you from, winning jobs at 15%, at 20% or way less, or, to I'm a 50% guy and my average job is 350K and I make 35-40% on every job and I'm a beast. That's the difference.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, there's a lot of variables, but that's my answer at this point.
Yeah, another way to say it, in my words, it would be focus, right? Just trying to realize what service do I really provide well, whether it's residential or commercial or a specific type of residential or a specific type of commercial that you can really chase after. And no one really knows, what they specialize in so that they can go to a market. For example, one of my clients, they used to do everything when it comes to roofing. And so what they did is, with Followup, they were able to see, number one, what clients do they have the highest closing ratio with? Number two, what of those clients, which had the highest margin job? And number three, they were able to build a profile of, what that client was so that they can do their business development and marketing activities around that ideal client. So once they started to focus on that and be disciplined, they were able to say no to jobs that were low margin, waste of time, and pursue the jobs that they really wanted to do. So, Brian?
I have a comment on that. I just read a book called The Pumpkin Plan. And have you ever read that book, Eric?
No.
Yeah, I think you'll love it. So what this book's about is it talks about how these farmers make these like huge pumpkins. They grow them to like the size of a car. You ever seen those pictures of those massive pumpkins?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
this guy who wrote the book, he's like, man, when I saw that, it blew my mind because, and to grow that pumpkin, there's a certain seed you got to have, which I think is going to be y'all's sweet spot of your client and your project. But what happens is we a lot of these planters, these growers, these farmers, they try to water and grow all of the pumpkins on the vine. But guess what happens is it takes a lot of nutrients to bud that pumpkin. So what they do is if the pumpkin looks like it's not going to be a good pumpkin, they cut that pumpkin out. So the
Early,
pumpkin,
right?
so all the nutrients start to flow into the promising pumpkin, right? So when you have the seed and then all the nutrients get cut out from, going to these junky pumpkins, which AKA that client who hates paying you on time. He's always wasting your time, asking you for everything. It's a proposal ASAP. I need this bid yesterday. Come on, can you do this? Hey, can you rebid this item? That needs to sharpen your pencil. Hey, can you do this? Ba, 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 ba. And now you're wasting your time pulling your hair out with these crappy pumpkins. When really what you need to do is fire them and spend all your time on the ones that you like, that like
Right.
what you do, that appreciate you and don't mind paying you what you want and pay you on time. That's where we need to focus all of our energy. So when that happened, it's like, dude, just grow a few really nice pumpkins and stop wasting your time. So I love what you just shared there.
Yeah. So, yeah, and the reason how we came to these conclusions is what we found in the study. So, like I said, we have all this data, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you something that we call the bidding data quadrant. And let's see here. Okay. So we have a scale of low margin jobs, right? We'll just call that LM. And then we have high margin jobs, right? And we can go like this. Of course, everybody wants to be at the high margin job area, right? So that is your axis here. And then your other axis is going to be the number of jobs won, right? So that's either a low number of jobs or a high number of jobs, right? So if we make this into a quadrant, what we found in our study is that you more than likely land in one of these four quadrants as a contractor. Now, Ryan, if you're a low margin job contractor and you get a low number or volume of jobs, what would you call that?
A loser.
A loser, yeah. I call it the bankrupt zone. Bankrupt zone, right?
So he's not going to be in business very long.
Yeah, right. So bankrupt zone, obviously that's red. You don't really want to be there. Let's say you're over here under high margin, but you're a low volume. Maybe you're trying to land those big whales. Maybe you have a couple of jobs that you're hoping on, but the low volume of high margin jobs. What would you call that?
I would call that I'd probably call it a mom and pop, like boutique,
Mom and pop.
like specialized, like
Yeah.
they're specialized mom and pop. They're solid. They do
Yeah.
a great job. They're good at what they do, or else they
Mhm.
wouldn't get paid what they want. But they just don't want to be a real business because it's a headache and they don't know how to do it.
Sure.
And they just want to
Yeah.
manage what they can manage, and they don't want to be overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's like a niche business for sure. And I'm going to call it bid and beg zone, because, maybe those jobs, there's 3 or 4 jobs, and if your relationships are not tight with these people, then you're begging for the job, right? If somebody comes and undercuts you and takes your huge job that you were waiting on the whole year, it's not good. So there's a lot of risk in this area, but if you want to be a small business, a niche mom and pop business, that might be okay with you. But as a lot of people say, if you're not growing, then you're shrinking. So, it's still not a great place to be. Now, Ryan, let me ask you this. Let's say you're up here, high volume of jobs, but low margin, where I think a lot of contractors find themselves. What would you call that zone?
I'd call it a bid shop. They just
Bid
are
shop?
bidding everything. They're probably getting a lot of jobs, but it's because of price, and
Yeah.
they probably don't really have much of a sales process. It's just they
Yeah.
just pump out prices, and they're probably good at it.
Just pumping out. Yeah. So I'm going to call this the danger zone. And the reason why is because you have zero margin for error, right? So these are the guys making, you know, under 15% margin on their jobs. If there's a mistake, you know, they're in the red, and it's tough. What these guys do well is they're good at marketing. They're good at business development. They have the opportunities there, but they're almost working for free if something goes wrong. You know what I mean? So the last zone, this top right, is where everybody wants to be. What would you call this one?
Cash cow.
Cash cow.
Your business is a cash cow. Thing just moves.
Yeah. So, and that's high margin, high volume of jobs. So I'm going to call it the winner zone, right? The winner zone. That's where everybody wants to be. And, you know, in our study, what we found, I'm going to show you here. Let's see here. I just made this into a nicer graphic because no one can read my handwriting, obviously. But if we looked at the market, we found that this is really interesting, that 25% of contractors are in the bankrupt zone, 30% in bid and beg, 30% in danger, and then 10% of the market in the winner zone. And if you just think about your own markets, you might be able to think about, you know, who's in each of these zones. I know a lot of companies in the winner zone and the danger zone, bid and beg zone, bankrupt zone, they might be, you know, they don't last 5 years. So Ryan, where do you see a lot of people in these zones? Do you think this is pretty representative of what you see out there?
Sure. I mean, there may be even less in the winner zone than 10%, to be honest, because of just the amount of focus and discipline and dedication to training and tracking and saying no all the time and not just saying yes to everything. I would say that's a good number, but it could be even less because of the amount of focus required. It takes a strong leader.
This is, you know, what our data showed. And, you know, the exciting thing, if you did the math here, if anyone on the call, you know, is good at math, I'm not good at math, but you'll notice that we have 95% here on the board. And what we found is even within the winner zone, there's a top 5% that really even outperformed those in the winner zone. And what I'm going to show you here today, and my promise, is basically what the top 5% are doing to maximize those bids. And there's activities and things that you can do to implement at your company. We call it the bid margin maximizer, so that you can, you know, be in that top 5% zone and make, you know, we know contractors making, like Ryan said, 40, 50, 60% margin on their jobs. And I'll give you the links to those resources. So let's see here. Ryan, what would you say contractors would do with an extra 10 to 40% margins on their jobs?
Depends on their organization, but they'd probably first off pay off debt. I'd say they would be out from the under that. They would, you know, perhaps they would be able to hire more crews and more people on the back end, or strengthen up their leadership team and get some really strong talent to help delegate some things that they just, you know, maybe don't want to do, or they're not great at, and they want to have their life versus be, you know, stuck to the business.
Yeah, I would say it would just, you know, this extra 10 to 40% that these 5% of companies have, it just allows them to breathe, you know, to reinvest in however way they need to. So they're not struggling just to make payroll, which I know a lot of people might be. So let's dive into what these contractors are doing. So the bid margin maximizer, what we noticed is that they do something very unique with their prospects. They do something very unique with their pipeline, and they do something very unique with their process. And if you're doing these three things, and we live right here in the center, then you're able to drive the margins on your bids. And what we have here is what we noticed are the problems in each of these areas, so that you can focus and help drive the margins on your job. So like if you're in the danger zone, your biggest area of improvement can be your prospects, the right kind of prospects that you're going after, right? If you're in the bid and beg zone, your biggest problem is your pipeline. And then if you're a bankrupt zone, all of it is your problem, right? So let's talk about the prospects. If you find yourself in the bankrupt zone, maybe you're taking any and every lead that you have no lead tracking and process in place, and you waste your time with a lot of bad leads, a lot of bad meetings, a lot of time wasted on services that you can't even do, or you shouldn't be doing in the first place. So if any of those things characterize you, then it's time to take a look at your prospects and your leads and who you're servicing to see if should we be doing this kind of work. If you're in the bid and beg zone, like we talked about, you have few qualified leads. You may or may not have a process in place, but the good thing you do is that you don't waste your time on things that don't fit into your area. And then if you're in the danger zone, you have many, many unqualified leads. You may or may not have a process, but the good thing you do is you get your name out there. You have good marketing, good business development. What you need to do is, really hone in on that focus. And if you're in the winner zone, you have good qualified leads and you have a lead process in place. So what are the top 5% doing? They have a lead response time in less than 1 hour. That's what we saw. And that if you're in service, the first one to get there is going to win the job. And the first one to respond quickly to a client is going to get the job. And that continual top of mindness with a client is usually going to win the job. Would you say that's true, Ryan?
That's huge. Yeah. Cause people, they have a problem. They have a leak, or if they're another trade, they have a problem that, as soon as somebody they know is a professional that they saw on the internet or would refer to them is on their way to take care of them, or at least see how they can address the issue. They're less likely to call everybody else because they know it's going to be taken care of, especially in a service situation.
Right. Yeah. And if you're not in service, just having that response time to that bid that, might take 6 months or a year to close, you're developing the relationship with that client, being that you're always responsive to their questions. You're always responsive and making sure you're on top of things. And that, if I'm choosing between someone that responds to me, once a month or responds to me every time I email them, I'm going to trust the person who's very responsive to me, right? So next thing that we saw the top 5% do with their prospects is they're tracking their lead source trends. And what this means is they know where their best source of leads comes from, whether that is their current clients, or maybe their trucks on the street, or maybe a property management company. They know where these high quality leads are coming from. And what they're able to do is identify these high quality partners. And if you have high quality partners, then they're sending you high quality leads. So it's super important to track where your leads come from so that you know where to double down. Instead of trying a new marketing activity, how about double down on your relationships with those high quality partners? And if you're doing that, the top 5%, rather than getting, a certain number of leads with a high quality partner, they go deeper into the relationship than wider with other relationships. Any comments, Ryan?
Yeah, that definitely justifies higher margin too, whenever there's that doubling down.
Right.
What do you think do you have any data on, is there like a common thread of what the number one lead source is with those top 5% winner zone, end zone folks?
Yeah, just from the top of my head, number one would be getting referral from current clients or repeat business. Number two would be trade associations. And then number three would be other contractors in different disciplines that they might do a lead share with. We saw those were probably the top three because all three of those are high quality. So it's super important to make sure the quality is there so that if you get a lead from there, that you can give it your time and attention, it will be worthwhile.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for answering that. I agree.
Yeah, just a recap for your prospects, leads response time in less than 1 hour, track lead source trends, and high quality partners. Ryan, what do you think out of those three things, do you think that your contractors need to implement the most?
They're all important. I would say getting the partners developed first, because then you'll have good leads to track. But you need to,
That's
yeah,
true.
I would not get too fanatical about tracking if you don't have anything to track, but get some movement and then start tracking it. I would say would be helpful. But data
Yeah.
trends and data trails are huge. But I can tell you, if you get high quality partners, you're going to see good things. But that's if you have a good mindset and a good sales process. There's a lot of variables to make that successful. This is scratching the surface here for sure, but this is huge if we can start here.
Yeah, it's the chicken and the egg, right? You need something to track, and then you have, to fill it, right? So, all right, let's go into the next thing, the pipeline. So, what the top 5% do with the pipeline? Let's talk about what everybody else is doing first. Pipeline management, they don't even know what that is, right? They eat what they kill. Whatever comes in, comes in. They have no idea where any bid is at besides maybe a spreadsheet or a bunch of folders that they have. No concept of pipeline management, lead management, anything like that. If you're not managing a pipeline right now and you're probably in the bankrupt zone, you're taking it month to month and hoping, work continues to flow in, and that's just not the way you want to run a business. Second area here, the danger zone. Maybe you have a pipeline, but you need to cut margins to win the deal. And a lot of times, this is when you get into price wars and things like that. You have a good steady stream of work, but it's low margin because, you're just undercutting everybody, which obviously contributes negative to your margins. And then here, the bid and beg zone, you have few deals, feast or famine. The good thing that you guys do is you keep track of your deals. So you keep track of your pipeline, but there's so few of them that if you're tracking 10 deals, you're putting your whole company at risk of just putting all your eggs in that basket, right?
Yeah.
So winter zone, you have steady stream of deals, predictable flow of high margin jobs. So you're able to forecast, in the future of what you might be seeing when it comes to work. Ryan, any comments on these?
This is really great. David commented and follow up and follow up and follow up. So that's good. He's a believer. I think pipeline. It's the winners, man. They care about quantity, quality, stages, velocity, and they're getting focused on that as well. Which
right.
That's a whole nother thing, and how to manage pipeline well, which I know your system does a great job at.
So let's talk about what the top 5% are doing. I call it going for the no. What this is, imagine you have a bunch of high quality, great leads in your pipeline, and you're trying to see what work you want to do. And what you should be doing is going for the no and trying to disqualify all those opportunities that don't fit your ideal client profile, so you can get them out of your hair and just focus on the perfect fit client. Now, this was really tough for salespeople, estimators, owners, because going for the no it seems counterintuitive, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially if you don't see long-term how it affects you by continuing to say yes to everything.
Yeah, and I'm sure after the fact you might have, a lot of our contractors would say, "I wish I never took that job." That's probably a job that you should have gone for the no for. So going for the no, it's a really expert level sales and estimating technique, and you really get to see who is going to work with you or not work with you. And if you go for the no and you get a no, that's actually a great thing, because you shouldn't have worked with them to begin with. So next thing that they do, they follow up 5 to 12 times, follow up, right? So here, this statistic graphic is the reason why follow-up exists. And I'm sure if you guys work with Ryan at all, that you've heard these statistics before. The first one here just blows my mind. 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect. So you get a lead coming into the business, almost 50% of your people don't even call them once. It's amazing. 25% make a second contact and stop. 12 make 3 contacts and stop. 10 more than 3 contacts and stop. 2% of sales are made on the first contact. 3% on the second. 5 on the third. 10 on the fourth. But 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. That just shows you if you're not following up at least 5 times throughout your sales and estimating process, then you're leaving a lot of opportunities on the table. You're leaving your relationship on the table. You're leaving everything to chance. Ryan, any thoughts on these statistics that we know so well?
Yeah, I think it's important that people don't misconstrue this as following up just to follow up means you're going to get more business. I think if you still don't ask good questions, they're not a good client. You know, people can take this out of context and you're like, shoot, I'm going to put the girl in the office who, you know, just going to blow up their phones, you know. So don't misunderstand. This is for sales professionals or the person managing the project. And, you know, this also doesn't mean that when you do automated follow-up emails, that counts either. These are, you know, touches and connections. And I understand that in a residential or service that cycle's shorter, but, you know, when you're closing deals that are, you know, very sizable, those just don't always happen as quickly. Although I don't want to limit anybody because, you know, why can't you close a $500,000 job in one call? There's nothing holding you back from that. But in the event that the decisions aren't being made in support of a good sales process, then you definitely need to stay connected to them. Always, though, with a next step. Like I always say, never leave a meeting without another meeting. You know, never leave a next step without a clear mutual next step, because, you know, things fall away and you're going to be following up way more than 12 times to get them back on the hook. It's just the nature of it. So,
right. Yeah. It's high quality follow-ups that matter, right? Personalized, direct. And having, you know, a tool like Followup in place to help you do that, you know, is really nice. Now, Ryan, you're going to like this next one, what the top 5% do. I call it knowing your strike zone. So taking baseball analogy, you don't get your batting average based on every pitch. Why? Because every pitch is not good to swing at, right? Same thing with leads. Should you be swinging at every lead? No. Your batting average is how many swings you take, how many balls you hit, or how many times you miss, right? So what does that mean about knowing your strike zone? Which opportunities are we most likely to win or make contact with, right? So here's a nice graphic that you can see from one of our clients. You can tell that on the bottom here, we have average number of days and then the value of the opportunity. And you can see their strike zone of 37% are within the month and around 10K of value, right? Now, if a lead comes in that's in their strike zone, you better believe that they are on top of that, because they're more than likely going to win these jobs. Now, if a job is, you know, way out here when it comes to 100 days and 10K in value, 100 days out, you know, it might not close. You can see the percentages here. So this really helps you focus in on what opportunities are going to help you. So knowing your strike zone is really important. Ryan, any comment?
Oh, this is speaking my language. This is awesome. Great. Just great.
Awesome. So knowing your strike zone, if you don't know your strike zone, it's a really helpful exercise just so you're able to see, you know, who your ideal clients are. Just a little study like this. Just take last month's opportunities and put a graphic together like this. It's really helpful to see. So just recap. Pipeline, what do the top 5% do? They go for the no, they follow up, and they know their strike zone. Ryan, what do you think people should be implementing here from these 3 takeaways?
Knowing your strike zone, for sure.
Strike zone, for sure. Of course you say that. Baseball. All right. So last thing, Playbook. let's talk about this. If you're in your bankrupt zone, maybe you don't have a playbook at all. The process is in your head. But the problem with that is your process can walk out the door, right? Somebody leaves the company. There's some issues within the company, and they might take your opportunities. And I would say at least half of the businesses that I've heard of usually start because there's some conflict at the top and somebody goes and starts their own business. If you don't have a playbook in place, then that expertise is leaving with them. And that's, you're looking for bankrupt zone if that's how you're managing your playbook and your processes. Here in the danger zone, maybe you have a few top players that carry the team. I know several companies that are in this danger zone, and the danger with this is that they can also walk away, and it's a lot of weight on their shoulders to carry the entire company. Maybe you have one sales or an estimator that really brings in, 80%, the 80-20 rule of the opportunities is dangerous because if something happens to them, there goes the company. Next thing here, we have bid and beg zone. One leader, my way or the highway. A lot of times I've seen out there, maybe the owner of the company has the entire process in their head, and if they don't do things my way, then what happens is I see that the bottleneck is always at the top, and they are limiting their company growth because they don't want to share that information in the playbook. And then the winners, they use the success stories, sales tools, documentation, everything to put it all together and share that knowledge with others, building others so that they can all grow together. Ryan, any comments on that?
For sure. You want to have your, everything defined, and you want to have a way for anybody who's new to come to the organization and be able to adopt the best practices as quickly as possible. I love the whole idea of a playbook and, training and a way for somebody to kind of be all singing from the same sheet of music or knowing the plays and having a standard language. Without that, even with individuals who are talented, there's nothing to impose to anybody new, and you might, just be okay, but you're not going to build something where a high performer or somebody who wants to grow an eager millennial or somebody who wants to develop a career with you, they're going to feel pretty lost, and primarily because you're running the business and doing the ride-alongs, whether you're a sales manager or an owner or whatever. Having people do ride-alongs with you is great, but 2 ride-alongs to watch you do what you do isn't going to be, isn't going to be the way that's going to help them be successful.
Right. So let's talk about what the top 5% are doing in these zones. They have a good, better, best approach to pricing. This is standardized across their companies and in their playbooks. So if you have a good, better, best approach to pricing and you put your offers out there, of course, if it's private negotiated work, what you're able to do, let me cancel these. Let's say you as a salesperson, estimator, project manager, you're presenting the better approach to a client. And what you're able to do is say, this is the minimum that you need. This is what I would recommend. If you want to get a warranty, you can bake that in there under like the better approach. And then the best would be kind of, 10 to 50% of other services that you can add on there. Generally, people are going to take the better approach, and that's how you're going to boost your margins, because you're going to be able to have every job out there with a maintenance agreement attached to it. And that's really going to help boost your margins rather than the bare bones price that you might give with the good approach.
Or it's a product.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, maybe it's a product system as well. That changes the price, or it's the installment method, for security or code or length of time. So yeah, I would say, that's interesting. The good, better, best approach is interesting because, you're the expert and you're telling them what you think they should do. Hopefully you're the consultant. But it definitely kind of casts a little net that helps you make the higher margin option a no-brainer, right?
Right.
So it is a value pitch. And I think that's a good insight. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. So These top 5% are doing that, and there's a lot of assumptions baked into the good, better, best approach, and more than likely they'll probably go with the middle of the road. Just think of yourself personally. When you have the good, better, best option, you probably go with the middle option. So the next thing, art versus science. What we noticed is that you can see the brain here. What we noticed is that all these companies that are in the top 5%, they have the science of their business down in a playbook. And once you have that as second nature, you're able to get creative with it, right? So left brain, right brain. And so the real question is how can you get the science of the sales and estimating process in your business? How do you get that part down and distributed across the company? How do you do that? You do that with checklists. Literally make checklists out of everything. This is what we do when we qualify an opportunity. This is what we do when we estimate a job. This is what we do when we have a client meeting. This is what we do when we do a takeoff, when we have a phone call. Make a checklist for everything. And what that's going to do is make sure everybody's doing the right thing. Everybody's on brand as a company. I read this book, Checklist Manifesto, that literally surgeons are bringing checklists into the operating room, and they showed that just a simple checklist is saving lives. And if they're doing it, we got to do it in our businesses as well. Any thoughts on that, Ryan?
That's super cool. My brain does get a little like, oh my gosh, I don't want to checklist myself to death, but because it's just, especially when you're trying to standardize something across to other folks who are new, this is a support system that I think gives, some structure to anybody to being successful. Because at the end of the day, we all want to be successful.
Right. So the last thing that these guys are doing is they understand the best practices from their top performers. Ryan, you mentioned a ride along with the owner. One of our clients, what they did is that they hired an administrative person for their top sales performer so that they can literally document and record 24/7 this person's, work life, so that they can distill whatever was going on in their brain when they worked with their clients to help them boost margin on their jobs. And what they found is they were asking a certain kind of question in a certain kind of way, and they were able to write these questions down and share it with the rest of their team. So that's why playbooks are so important. Checklists are the foundation, right? The art, and then this is how you capture the science. One way that you can do that, if you do phone calls or meetings, just hopping on a Zoom like we're on here and recording it. You can learn a lot of best practices and putting that together into a playbook, sharing it with everybody so that everybody can learn from the best of the best. So just to recap the 5% takeaways of playbooks, good, better, best approach to pricing, checklists, and tweaks to the playbook with best practices from your top performers. So, like I promised you, we have templates and tools, roadmaps, to implement all of these things we just talked about. I have a worksheet called the Bid Margin Maximizer, which goes over these 3 sections that we just talked about: your current strategies, a rating so you can rate yourself, new strategies that we talked about today, and then how do you want to upgrade your business. And the way you can get those is just going to these website links. It's all in our website, followupcrm.com, under tools and resources. All these links are there. So if you want, you can go there, or I can send these to you. Or if you're looking, all of these are spreadsheets and guides to help you implement. But if you're looking for, a faster or more automated way, that's what we do at Followup. We can help you implement something like this at your company. So, Brian?
Yeah, thanks for sharing. This is great. Erick's been hard at work, putting a lot of these together, and I'm really glad that folks are able to, have access to this. So I want to open up for some questions. We had a question earlier, and since you're the guest, Erick, I'll let you answer. Is there a strike zone report in Followup CRM?
No, there isn't, but we can talk about creating one. but you can do an Excel export and create that. That's how I created that.
So maybe either a walkthrough video on how to create that would be helpful for Excel,
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure a lot of these guys are not exactly competent on how to be a beast at that stuff. So maybe that would be helpful, or
Sure.
if you could do
Yeah,
that,
I
or
can
create the report.
a
So
template for that. Yeah.
cool. And then somebody asked what's considered a high margin on a residential replacement project. So if anybody has any insights on what they think a high margin is, I think it's all relative to what your company is. But if you want to chat that, love to see what you all think. 40%, is a high for replacement for residential. That's what I heard from our friend in Colorado. That's his insight. I would say that's very accurate. 40 is where I think you're high. Anything north of that's awesome. 30s are pretty good, okay, but I think if 40 is great. We got other questions in here, some comments. Separating roles is the key, and a process for each person is also key. I think that some people commit all in on the cradle to grave model, and actually they're very successful and profitable because of the product knowledge and the client relationship and the ability to manage a project. But at the end of the day, at some point you get locked up. You just can't kind of grow beyond that. And that's the difference between like a commercial guy who's been in this for years doing 4 to 5 million cradle to grave, and then moving into, potentially, if they're a really good salesperson, to have a couple project managers or one to manage their projects, and now they're doing 9, 10, or more, because they're able to wear less hats if they're good. Right? So if they're decent. So yeah, I'm big on that. Andy C, what is a high commercial margin? I think it depends on the job size, but a replacement job, if it's coding, of course you're looking at 30 is a dream. I mean, I know 30 is very doable. Anything like coding or restoration is going to be very easy to get high. That's not a repair. And anything that, you want to be hired. It's like almost like a service job. I think that you could get 40% as well on commercial, even with really large ones, if you are you're dealing with that really good strike zone. I think that it's funny. I have a client who uses this term called 3D jobs, dangerous, dirty, and difficult. So when they do 3D jobs, dangerous, dirty, and difficult, they make the most money. And they said that's our specialty, because most people don't want to bid that job. It's too dangerous, or it's too dirty, or too difficult. So when somebody is able to focus on that, you can demand more margin, where you're in the 40s and you're just bringing home a boatload of cash, because it's just stuff that nobody wants to do, nor they don't have the ability to do it. Any other questions? I think we have, if you guys have some time, there's a couple more. I'd love to answer them. Anybody yet? But guys, that's, you don't get there right away, but you can get there. We've seen it time and time again. So very good. So Erick's going to share that. I'm going to do a giveaway real quick, if I may. Take the screen. Is that all right, Erick?
Go for it.
I'm going to go ahead and give away this sales tool. As if you guys have more questions, please. And then I can unmute. I want to unmute a fellow guest who's using Followup CRM at the end, because I love to hear their insights. But this is a sales scouting report, $500 value, and this is an incredible tool. So what this is going to be is if you're a sales manager or salesperson, I want to evaluate you and go over the results with you. So so the lucky winner is going to be Andy C. So Andy C, I have your email. I'm going to send you a link. I just need a name of somebody who you want to evaluate. And then Andy, I will go over the results with you. And then that will be a time for us to connect on that particular person's strengths, weaknesses, and then what we want to do about it. But it'll be very insightful. So let's be prepared to do that. I just need a name, first and last name of the person that you want to evaluate. Awesome. I'll be reaching out. I want to hear from a fellow user of Followup and a client of mine who wants to share about Followup. If we, so Dave, you asked if you can support us, and I said sure. So love to hear some thoughts from you real quick, David. You are unmuted.
Perfect. Is that better?
Yeah, we're on, man.
Awesome. So yeah, I believe in follow-up power a lot. I was kind of a guy that was tracking leads through CRMs, but follow-up power definitely helps me keep my budget available for the owners. So we know what kind of to prospect and see in the forecasting future. It helps you keep the owners abreast of approximate times that jobs could hit, which I always think is fantastic to have as well. But my major thing that I think a reason I sell a lot is because of follow-up. Not just follow-up power, but following up in general. Like they mentioned before, the percentage of people that don't even follow up is pretty sad. I think my new motto is go until the no. Keep following up until they tell you no. That's pretty much where I sit. I do like what you said about the separating of roles. Ryan Groth knows that it took me a while to get some roles separated, and now that I'm just dedicated to sales, keeping the customer relation, keeping the communication going with the customer is great. Having a project manager on your team and a coordinator on the commercial team is huge. And then just making sure the owners are abreast of the schedule. I mean, that is huge, and being honest the whole time. You know, sometimes I feel like these owners don't even know what's going on their buildings during the build. So keeping them abreast and afloat of what's going on is great. But Eric has always been great. The follow-up powers, unbelievable. I'm not the best person at entering every lead, and I kind of maybe skew the numbers on entering the ones that I have sold, if that makes sense. But I do need to get better at entering every lead into that system. That's where one thing that is data entry that I fail at personally. But if you use it the right way, and then your company can track you, is pretty great.
Thanks, David.
Awesome.
Yeah. I can let him go unless you have any questions for him, Eric.
No, thanks, David. Appreciate it. You know, we'll reach out and catch up soon.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, man. So if you haven't seen a demo of Followup CRM, you need to get one. If you're a contractor, you know, take a look at it. And what I think it does is it creates structure, and it creates the ability to set your goals. It helps you see a pipeline. It helps you know your numbers. It helps you have accountability with members of the team and what they're supposed to do, and you can tailor it. I think it's an incredible tool. There's others out there in the world like it. But what I love about Followup CRM is it's tailored for the industry and their relational approach, and they keep going deeper into what the contractor needs versus what the whole world needs. They just keep going deeper. So that's why I'm, proud to have them as a partner, and that's why they're here, because I want you guys to use it. I want you to grow and use it really well. So there's a link, followupcrm.com. I can assure you, you use it, you're going to grow your sales. If you use it right, you'll grow even more, and then you become salespeople and do the structure and have a sales process and get the coaching from me. All those together, methodically, consistently repeated, will create incredible results over time, and you will be in that top 5% zone if you really want it, if you're willing to do whatever it takes, as long as it's moral and ethical and legal. So I really proud to have Eric on. Thank you so much. Great job. That was really, really helpful information, and really, specific to this industry and the problems that they're suffering with. Thank you so much, and look forward to getting this recording out to those who missed it. And so yeah, congrats and good luck at the trade show that you're at.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Bye-bye, everybody.